my fiancée slept with her coworker. During our engagement trip, so I left her there. Blocked everyone, and posted the truth when I got home. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and up until recently, I thought I had my entire future mapped out. I was engaged to the woman I believed was my soulmate, and we had just started planning our wedding. I'd spent years convincing myself that all the heartbreaks and false starts in my dating life were worth it, because they led me to her. When she said yes to my proposal, I felt like the luckiest man alive. For the first time, I thought I was standing on solid ground. But even as I replayed that memory of her saying yes in my head, there was this small, nagging voice inside me I kept pushing down. It whispered about her phone always buzzing late at night, about her sudden work, emergencies, and about the way she pulled away whenever I tried to be affectionate during stressful weeks. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself I'd finally found someone who loved me for me, and I couldn't ruin that by being paranoid. When she suggested we take an engagement trip before getting caught up in wedding chaos, I jumped at the idea. I wanted to celebrate us, to cement the feeling that we were stepping into forever together. I remember packing my suitcase with this ridiculous grin on my face, thinking about the pictures we'd take, the memories we'd build, and how someday we'd show them to our kids. But what I didn't know was that this trip, what was supposed to be the happiest chapter of my life, would instead break me in ways I never imagined. And it wasn't going to be because of bad weather, travel issues, or money problems. It was going to be because of her. We boarded the plane like every picture-perfect couple on Instagram. She leaned against my shoulder, snapping selfies, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is what happiness feels like. I was buzzing with excitement, imagining candlelit dinners and lazy mornings wrapped up in each other. For once, I thought life was simple. But almost as soon as we landed, reality didn't match the fantasy in my head. She kept reaching for her phone, claiming she had to check in with work. At first, I brushed it off. She had an intense job, and I'd always admired her dedication. Still, it stung watching her eyes glued to a glowing screen while I sat across from her in a beautiful hotel suite, waiting for her to look up and smile at me the way she used to. I tried to distract myself by planning out little adventures, hiking trails, local food spots, even a sunset boat ride. She agreed, but half-heartedly, like her mind was somewhere else. At dinner that first night, I noticed her screen light up under the table. She tilted it away before I could see, typing quickly. "Work stuff?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't even look up. "Yeah, deadlines don't take vacations." I nodded, but inside, something twisted. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to imagine. So I plastered on a smile and convinced myself that I was overreacting, that she just wanted to balance work and love. Still, when I went to bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She lay beside me scrolling, laughing softly at whatever was on her screen, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't the person making her laugh anymore, and that realization, it sank like a stone in my stomach. The second night of the trip, I woke up to the faint glow of her phone in the dark. The hotel curtains were drawn. The room was quiet except for the sound of waves crashing outside, but she was sitting up against the headboard, typing furiously. Her face was lit blue by the screen. When she noticed me stir, she quickly locked it and slipped it under her pillow. "Couldn't sleep?" I mumbled, my voice groggy. She smiled too quickly. "Yeah, just checking an email from my boss." Go back to sleep, but the tone of her voice felt rehearsed, not casual, not genuine, like a kid caught sneaking cookies from the jar. I wanted to ask more, but I was paralyzed. Part of me wanted the truth, but another part was terrified of what the truth might actually be. The next morning, we had breakfast on the patio overlooking the ocean. The sun was warm. The air smelled like coffee and sea salt, but I couldn't shake what I'd seen the night before. I asked, "Everything okay at work?" hoping maybe she'd open up. She didn't even hesitate. "It's fine. Just some reports I need to finish when we're back." She said it while laughing at something on her phone, not even looking at me. I stirred my coffee, trying to swallow the lump of insecurity growing in my throat. My chest felt heavy. Why did it seem like her phone was her real partner on this trip and I was just An accessory? I reminded myself I wasn't supposed to be that guy, the jealous fiancé who smothers her with accusations. I kept repeating in my head, trust her. Don't ruin this. Don't be controlling, but deep down something had shifted. The laughter we shared used to come so easily. Now, every smile of hers felt like a mask, and I couldn't tell if I was imagining it or if I was already losing her. It happened on the third day, and I still remember how ordinary the moment seemed before everything cracked. We'd just come back from a long walk along the beach, sand clinging to our shoes, her laughter echoing as we shook it off in the hallway. For a brief second, it felt normal, like maybe I was just paranoid, like maybe this trip would reset us. But then she left her phone on the dresser while she went to take a shower. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was unpacking my bag when the screen lit up. A preview flashed across the lock screen, a heart emoji and the words, "Miss you already." The sender's name was one I recognized immediately, a male coworker she had mentioned in passing before. I froze. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. My hands itched to pick up the phone, to unlock it, to find the proof I needed. But I just stood there, staring, while the sound of running water filled the silence. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, I must have looked pale because she tilted her head. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "Yeah, just tired." Inside, my mind was spinning. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw that phone into the ocean. But instead, I swallowed the rage, telling myself maybe I misread it. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. Because if I was right, if my fiancé was really telling another man she missed him while on our engagement trip, then everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was steady, calm, peaceful. Mine was shallow, restless, broken, and all I could think was, what if I'm right? What if she's not mine at all? The next evening, we went out for dinner at this little seaside restaurant she had picked. Candlelight flickered against the wooden tables, waves crashed in the background, and couples laughed around us. It should have been romantic. It should have been the kind of night we'd remember forever. But my chest felt tight, like I was suffocating under the weight of everything I hadn't said. She excused herself to the restroom halfway through the meal, leaving her phone on the table. For a moment, I just stared at it, my fork frozen in midair. I told myself not to look, that if I wanted to preserve even the illusion of happiness, I should leave it alone. But then the screen lit up, like fate was daring me. A message preview popped up. My heart hammered so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait again." My entire body went cold. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped my glass of water. When she came back, I must have looked like hell because she asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded, forcing my lips into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Yeah, just a little tired." But inside I was dying. Last night, the words echoed in my skull. She hadn't just been flirting or texting. She had already crossed the line, and she had done it while we were supposed to be celebrating our engagement, our future. I stared at her across the table, her face lit up by the candlelight, her eyes sparkling as she scrolled on her phone again like nothing was wrong. I wanted to shout, to flip the table, to demand how she could look me in the eyes and pretend everything was fine. Instead, I sat there in silence, chewing food I couldn't taste, knowing the woman I loved had already betrayed me. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just a trip. It was the slow death of everything I thought I had. Back at the hotel, my chest felt like it was going to explode. Every step up the hallway, every second watching her laugh and scroll on her phone like nothing was wrong, it all boiled inside me until I couldn't hold it anymore. I closed the door behind us and finally spoke, my voice trembling, but steady enough to cut through the air. "Is there something you need to tell me?" She looked up, her brows furrowing like I just asked her the weirdest question in the world. "What are you talking about?" I swallowed hard, searching her face for even a flicker of guilt. "About us. About what you've been doing." Her expression shifted, just slightly. But then she laughed. A short, cold laugh that made my skin crawl. "God, you're paranoid. You always do this. You twist little things into something bigger." My fists clenched at my sides. I wanted to tell her I'd seen the texts, that I knew about her amazing night. But some part of me wanted to see how far she'd go, how easily she'd look me in the eyes and lie. She stood, brushing past me toward the bed. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like this. I'm here with you, aren't I? Stop being so insecure." Her words felt like knives. Insecure. Paranoid. She was flipping it back on me, making me question my own sanity. My throat burned with words I couldn't say, evidence I couldn't yet reveal. So I stayed quiet. I sat on the edge of the chair, staring at her as she slid under the covers, scrolling again. Her face lit by the screen I wanted to smash into pieces, and all I could think was, she's lying to me, right to my face. The silence between us that night was deafening, and deep down, I knew I couldn't let this go. The next night, she told me she needed some air. Said the hotel room felt stuffy, and she wanted to go for a walk by the beach. Her tone was casual, like she was doing something innocent, but the way she avoided my eyes made every nerve in my body light up. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed my jacket, waited a few minutes, and then followed. The night air was damp and heavy, the salt from the ocean clinging to my skin. My heart pounded against my ribs as I trailed a few steps behind her, keeping my distance but never letting her out of sight. She didn't head toward the beach. She walked straight across the resort grounds, weaving between palm trees and glowing lanterns, until she stopped at another hotel building. I froze in the shadows as I watched her glance around, then swipe her key card and slip inside. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. I crept forward and waited by the wall, my pulse roaring in my ears. A door opened down the hall, and there he was, the co-worker whose name I'd seen on her phone. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even look guilty. She just stepped inside his room and closed the door behind her. My knees went weak. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia or insecurity. It was truth. Cold, undeniable truth staring me in the face. I stood there for what felt like hours, numb, staring at that closed door. The woman I'd planned to marry was inside with someone else, and she had no idea I was out there, watching everything crumble. And in that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt empty, because the person I thought I knew, the person I gave my future to, wasn't real. I don't even remember walking back to the hotel room. My legs carried me, but my mind was somewhere else, spinning, crashing, breaking apart. By the time I sat down on the edge of the bed, the room felt colder, emptier, like the walls themselves were caving in on me. The engagement ring sat on the nightstand, gleaming under the soft lamplight. I picked it up and turned it over in my hands, the diamond catching little sparks of light that mocked me. I remembered the day I bought it, how I drained my savings, how I told myself, she's worth every penny, every sacrifice. I thought about all the times I'd defended her to my friends, to my family, insisting that she was loyal, that she was different. And now? She was in another man's room, betraying me while I sat alone with a symbol of promises she never intended to keep. I pressed the ring into my palm until it hurt, until my skin turned red, as if pain could anchor me. My chest burned, my throat ached, and for the first time in years I felt truly worthless, like I had given every piece of myself away and been left with nothing. I whispered into the empty room, my voice breaking. Why wasn't I enough? The silence that answered me was heavier than any words she could have said. Tears blurred my vision, and I hated myself for it. I hated that I still loved her, even as she was destroying me. That was the lowest moment, the realization that I was clinging to someone who had already let go of me. I sat there all night, the ring clutched in my fist, drowning in the truth I couldn't unsee. And by morning, I knew something had to change. By the time the sun rose, something inside me had shifted. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but it had hardened into something colder. Resolve. I couldn't undo what I'd seen, couldn't erase the texts or the image of her slipping into his room. But I could decide what came next. She stumbled back into the room just after dawn, hair messy, eyes glazed with fake exhaustion. I couldn't sleep. she muttered, climbing into bed without even looking at me. The sight of her pulling the covers over herself, pretending everything was normal, made me want to scream. But instead, I kept my face calm, my voice steady. I said nothing. Later that morning, while she showered, I opened my laptop and quietly booked an early return flight. One seat. My hands didn't even shake as I entered my card details. The confirmation email popped up like a promise. I was leaving her here, with the choices she'd made. I packed only what I needed, essentials, documents, things she wouldn't notice missing right away. Every movement felt mechanical, like I was shedding the weight of a life I no longer wanted. I glanced at her suitcase in the corner, stuffed with outfits she had carefully picked for our trip, and felt nothing. By the time she came out, humming to herself, I'd already made my decision. I smiled at her, kissed her forehead, and told her I was heading out for a quick errand. She didn't even question it. Her phone buzzed again, and her attention was gone. I walked out of that hotel without looking back, my chest tight, but my mind clear. For the first time in days, I wasn't drowning. I was taking control, and she had no idea what was about to hit her. Landing back home felt surreal. I dragged my suitcase through the quiet airport, every step echoing like I was walking into a new life I hadn't asked for. By the time I got to my apartment, exhaustion hit me, but it wasn't the kind that sleep could fix. It was the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest. My phone was buzzing nonstop. Dozens of missed calls, texts stacking one after another, her name flashing across the screen again and again. At first I ignored it, tossing the phone on the couch like it was poison. But then the messages from mutual friends and even my family started flooding in. Where's she? Did something happen? She said you abandoned her, man. That true? Don't throw away your engagement over a fight. Reading those words made my blood boil. She was already spinning the story, already painting me as the villain before I could even catch my breath. And the worst part? People were believing her. I called my mom, thinking maybe she'd understand. But even she sounded hesitant. Honey, she's young. People make mistakes. Maybe just hear her out? Hearing that nearly broke me again. Mistakes? Was sleeping with another man on our engagement trip just a mistake? The pressure mounted with every call, every text, every person telling me to forgive, to compromise, to not throw away love. But what they didn't know, the part she wasn't telling anyone, was the proof I had sitting right there on my phone. The screenshots, the messages, the words she couldn't take back. I sat there, staring at that evidence, my hands trembling, not from sadness this time, but from the anticipation of what I was about to do. Because if she wanted to twist the story, I was about to show everyone the truth. That night, I sat at my desk with my laptop open and my phone in hand. My heart was pounding, but not with fear, with a strange electric calm. I scrolled through the screenshots, her late-night texts, the heart emojis, the message about last night being amazing. Proof so undeniable it made me sick just looking at it. She had painted me as the coward who abandoned her. Fine. But I wasn't going to let her smear me while she hid behind lies.
So I opened social media, attached the screenshots, and typed a short, brutal caption. This is why I came home alone. My finger hovered over the post button for a split second before I pressed it.
And just like that, the truth was out. The reaction was instant. Notifications blew up, likes, comments, shares. Friends messaged me in shock. Holy shti, I can't believe she did that to you. Family members who had been siding with her suddenly went quiet. Her carefully curated image of being the perfect, loyal fiancé shattered in real time. I got calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years, voices filled with anger on my behalf. Even her closest friends turned on her, some of them messaging me to apologize for ever defending her. The comment sections lit up with outrage, disbelief, and the kind of collective fury that only betrayal can spark. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with her desperate attempts to reach me. Missed calls, paragraphs of excuses. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The world already knew what she had done, and there was no talking her way out of it. For once, The silence on my end was louder than anything I could have said. And I knew then. This was just the beginning of her downfall. In the days that followed, my world grew quieter. The storm of calls, the chaos of messages, the endless debates in my inbox, they all faded once the truth settled in. People stopped asking me to forgive her, stopped trying to convince me I'd made a mistake. Because now there was no room for doubt. Everyone saw who she really was. She kept trying, though. More messages, more apologies, more I was drunk, and it didn't mean anything. At first I read them out of morbid curiosity, but eventually I stopped opening them altogether. I blocked her number, blocked her email, blocked her everywhere she could reach me. She wasn't part of my story anymore. I took the ring, the same ring I'd once held with such hope, and set it in a drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. A reminder of the night I hit rock bottom and the morning I chose myself over her lies. Slowly, I began to breathe again. I went back to the gym, picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends I had neglected while pouring everything into her. It wasn't easy.
Healing never is.
But with every step I felt lighter. One night, I looked in the mirror and said out loud, "I am enough." My voice cracked, but it felt real. Stronger than anything she could have taken from me. She lost me. That was her punishment. And in the end, I realized I hadn't just walked away from her. I had walked toward myself, toward a future where I would never again ignore the red flags, never again hand my heart to someone who didn't deserve it. I closed the drawer on that ring, took a deep breath and smiled, because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply moving on.